All right, guys, welcome to the Go Accomplish More podcast. And I'm super excited to be here. Today, we're going to have a special episode, and we're going to be talking about one of my favorite chapters in the book that I wrote, The Freedom Agency. Pretty much explains that more revenue doesn't equal more freedom. So today, we're going to talk about the revenue mirage. And if you're growing an agency and you're making good revenue, but still feel stuck in the grind, this episode is for you. The illusion that more revenue automatically equals more freedom, because in most cases it doesn't, right? So let's break it down and let's get right into it. The revenue mirage, what it means is pretty much is that revenue growth without structure increases chaos. And what do I mean by that? Let's say that you're increasing your revenue by landing 3 or 4 new clients in 1 month. But now you're reviewing more work, right? Answering more questions and fixing more mistakes than before. If you have more clients coming in, it's only going to amplify weak systems. So if onboarding is messy with 5 clients, it becomes a disaster with 15, right? Deadlines start slipping and clients feel it. Hiring fast without clarity creates more oversight, right? Now you have to hire more, right? You have more clients coming in the pipeline. You're getting more involved in the operations, and now you got to hire more people. And then what happens is that you hire a project manager, right, to free up your time, or you hire an EA, but now you're double checking their work because expectations weren't defined, right? You weren't ready for the next hire. And then what happens next? And stress scales faster than profit if structure isn't there. You might have the revenue go up, right, 20%, but then your stress level is going up 50% than where it was before, because you're still the final decision maker. You are the bottleneck. Remember that revenue tied to your time is not freedom. We live in a culture that the hustle mode is popular, right? We hear a lot of influencers, a lot of agency owners just say, you got to hustle more. You got to have more outputs, which there's truth to it, but then your health goes down the drain, right? If you stop working for a week, you got to ask yourself, if you take that 1 week vacation, and everything slows down while you're out on vacation, that's dependency on you. Your business, your agency is depending on you. And that's not going to last, right? So if revenue is increasing, but your pressure is increasing with it, that's your signal. Growth should create leverage, not more dependency. Before chasing the next milestone, fix the structure, right? Under the current one. Otherwise, you're just scaling chaos. And I think that happens to a lot of us, right? Like we think that we can just create more revenue, right? And that's going to fix all the problems, right? And in most cases, it doesn't. So now we're going to jump into the founder's trap, right? And this is what happens when you don't fix the necessary things in the front end. This becomes a trap for the agency owner, right? That's the mentality. No one can do it like me. So that's why I got to be jumping in. You tell yourself it's faster to just do it. And then 6 months later, you're still doing tasks someone else should have owned. Then you start micromanaging, right? And then you tell yourself, well, micromanagement is disguised as quality control, right? You tell yourself, well, this is quality control, right? But what you're doing is that you're re-editing work that was already 90% good. Remember, when you're delegating, it's never going to be 100% the way you want it. So you have to let go and understand that if someone does it at least 90% as good as you, or even 80% in some cases, it's better than you doing it yourself, right? So, and I get it, right? Control feels safe, but what it does is that it kills team initiative, right? When every decision has to go through you, your team stops making decisions. Let's say you have a team of 6 team members, right? And out of the 6 team members, you have about 4 A players. And then the other ones are B players. What happens is that the A players are going to get tired because if you're micromanaging and you're on top of them and you're not letting them have the autonomy that they're supposed to have, they get tired. And then they also get tired because you have the B players that are dependent on the agency owner. So it's very important that You can be on top of things as an agency owner, but you want to make sure that you give them their space so that they can come up with the solutions. Let them fail too. A lot of times we don't allow our team members to fail so that they can learn from their mistakes. When every decision has to go through you and then you become the bottleneck. So like a deliverable sits in Slack waiting for your approval. Every decision when it comes to graphic design, when it comes to SEO, most of the major departments that want to move forward, they can't because they're waiting on you. And I'm guilty. Listen, I'm guilty of that. It's happened to me numerous of times, even at the level that we're in right now. I think our agency is growing in leaps and bounds. Our staffing agency is also growing in leaps and bounds. And a lot of times there's still some areas that I'm hesitant to let go. So it's a learning process, but in the end, you want to let go. Once you trust the system, once you trust your team members, you want to make sure that you're letting go. So when team growth is capped by your control, then your best team members eventually leave because they want ownership, right? So you don't want that to happen, right? At the end of the day, that's why things break after you hit a certain milestone. Let your team members move, let your team members succeed, let your team members fail. And when they fail, they're going to learn from their failure. So ask yourself honestly, where am I holding on? Is it because of fear instead of necessity? The moment you delegate strategically, capacity will expand, right? And I get it, guys. I know sometimes it's really hard because as the agency owner, you probably built something from scratch. You were once the account manager. You were once the SEO person doing the SEO and the keyword research and building the website. You were the one doing everything. So you have to let go and you have to become the visionary and the leader that takes charge of your agency. Now we're going to talk about goals don't scale, but systems do. One of my favorite books, which is Atomic Habits by James Clear, he talks about that goals don't scale, but systems do, right? If you want to improve your life, you want to make sure that you're building systems around your life. You want to accomplish those goals in your agency, make sure that you're focusing on creating great systems. Because if you have great systems, that's how you're going to scale. Goals create motivation. Let's say that you want to hit 2 million, right? And you set that goal. That's great. I mean, the excitement is there. You rally up the team. You're like, hey, this year we're going to hit a revenue goal of 2 million. But that doesn't build structure, right? Just getting everyone hyped and being excited about it, that does not build structure. Systems can create something that's predictable. When onboarding is documented step by step, and you can apply this to every single role, every single outcome that you're doing. If you're documenting and you're having like a clear SOP and systems, it's going to work better without you, right? Because you have a systems in place. So you fall to the level of your systems. When things get busy, you default. You default to whatever processes already exist. And that's what happens. You know, a lot of times, we just did this the other day in our agency, in the staffing agency, we were getting flooded with an area, like a specific department. And we realized that our team member was getting exhausted, like emotionally. It was draining her out. Her energy level was draining her out. And we realized, let's add some systems in it. Let's add some AI within that department. And when we did that, we started automating that process in that department. We started noticing that now she had more energy because she was being involved in the process, but with half the time. And she was doing more because she had a process in place. And now she's able to help out in another department or a similar department where she can bring more value. So it's very important that systems will create that predictable outcome. So you want to make sure that you're documenting step by step everything that you're doing so you can create those clear SOPs, right? So revenue goals without systems create burnout. You hit your revenue target, but then you spend all evening cleaning up confusion. Systems remove decision fatigue, right? You stop answering the same repetitive questions every day. So it's important that building systems is not just a one-time thing, but you're going to see it come to you every single day in the future. It's going to help you in the future. Once you create that system once, it's going to help that repeatable process because people get sick, right? People move from one department to another. So imagine if you didn't have a clear system in place for that department, it can create a lot of problems, right? So if you want freedom, stop obsessing over revenue targets and start obsessing over operational clarity. Your agency will never outperform its systems. Build the system once and you'll benefit from it forever. Like the other day, I would say last month, I was building a system. I was helping to build a system in this department. And it took out of my time, it took me 4 hours. But then before starting it, I realized that right now it's painful. It was painful building the system because it took about 4 hours. But I knew that once I finished those 4 hours, it would save me over 20 hours in a month. And then if you multiply 12 months out of the year, that's a lot of hours. I mean, that's 240 hours saved by just spending one time. You spend one time, those 4 to 5 hours or 6 hours, creating the system. And even if the system takes you, if it's a big system that takes you 10 or 15 hours, once you complete it once, it's going to save you so much time in the long run. Now you got to stop hiring and you got to start structuring, right? A lot of times what happens is that when your agency starts scaling, you need to start hiring quickly. And what happens is that the agency owner is not ready when they receive all these hires or they hire without the structure in place. So stop hiring, start structuring. So hiring without role clarity increases chaos, right? So if you hire someone to help with marketing, but no one knows what they truly own, that's going to create a lot of stress, not only on yourself, but the person that is starting in the new role, right? The role you hire or the person that's going to be in that role must be outcome driven. So instead of manage emails, maintain 90% client retention, right? So let's say we hire an account manager and we're just focusing on what that account manager is supposed to do, right? What they're supposed to do on their task. You're going to say, hey, listen, your main job is that we need to keep client retention high at a 95% client retention or 90%. And that's going to give more clarity. How they do it doesn't matter. It's the outcome, right? So structure builds confidence. We can understand that, right? Structure builds confidence. When expectations are clear, your team moves faster and with more ownership. If you have undefined expectations, that will create dependency, right? If success isn't measurable, your team keeps checking in for reassurance. And you just don't want a lot of yes mans or yes team members every single time you say something or they're waiting for you to tell them what to do. You don't want them to be dependent on you. You want to make sure that they take action, right? That they're self-managed, self-resilient, self-dependent. Build the seat before filling it. Make sure that you build the role before you hire the team member. If you don't design the role first, the person ends up defining it for you. How many times have you ever hired someone and you hired out of necessity, and then at the end, you come back after 2 months, that person has been with you for 2 or 3 months, then you ask that person like, hey, why are you doing this? Why are you working in this fashion? And then they tell you, well, you never gave me a clear instruction, so I decided to create my own structure. So that can create a lot of havoc, right? That can create a lot of stress as well. So hiring doesn't necessarily fix overwhelm. Clarity does. You want to make sure that you have the right systems in place before hiring the person. So before adding headcount, define outcomes, define systems, and define the accountability for that role. Structure is what makes people effective. Remember that. And I'm going to talk right now about the difference, right, between an operator versus being an architect of your agency. The operators execute. You're inside the ad account, fixing campaigns and rewriting copy. You're like in it, right? The operator is usually in it. And that's why most agency owners, they hire an operations manager, right? That's managing the day-to-day. They hire a project manager. They hire an account manager. And I get it. If you're hearing this podcast, you're probably saying, John, I'm not there yet to hire individuals. But start with one person. But before hiring that one key player, make sure that you build the structure first so that when they come in, they know what they have to do. And once you hire that key role, they can build upon the SOP that you already created for them, the structure that you created for them. That's their role. But you got to start with something. You got to give them that starting point. The architect, you're building frameworks. That's the difference. As an architect, you're building frameworks so campaigns can run without your constant involvement. Operators react, right? What's an example of that is that your day is driven by Slack notifications and client fires. But the architect builds for scale. They're thinking 90 days ahead about structure and leadership. So you want to make sure that if you feel as an agency owner that you're still in operator mode, you have to figure out what you can do to free yourself up, right? And what you can do is just do an audit. Do a 30-day audit, get a Google Doc, and make sure that you audit every single day and just audit in 15-minute increments. And you're making sure, or you're auditing what you're doing every single day for the next 30 days. And you're going to know where your time is being spent. Where is your time being sucked? And then once you figure out where it's going, then you need to start delegating that. You need to hire your first EA, part-time EA, or full-time executive assistant so that they can do those tasks that you shouldn't be doing. So remember, operators react. They're the ones usually putting out the fires. And the architects build for scale. They're thinking about what's ahead. Freedom is designed, guys. In the end of the day, freedom is designed. And hustle doesn't create freedom. Structure does. This is the real shift. Stop asking how you can work harder, but start asking how your business or your agency can run better. You don't scale by doing more. You scale by designing better. Freedom is not accidental. It's by being the architect of your agency, of your business. So, guys, I'm going to give you some action items. Usually when I do these solo podcasts, I want to bring some awareness, but at the same time, I want to leave you with some action items that you can take so that you can grab and apply it in your agency. So like that, you can also be free, right? Here's what you need to do this week. Number one is identify your biggest bottleneck. Where are you still the single point of failure? Number two is do the weekly audit and break it down into 3 buckets. The first one is, this is only for me. Only I can do this bucket. What falls under that bucket as an agency owner? I would say the things that you should be only doing should be doing your podcast, doing video content, going to trade shows, going to industry shows, getting some speaking engagements, building relationships, casting vision. You should be the one also involved in the hiring process. You should be the one with the final approval on which team members you should be hiring for your agency. Those are some of the top. Maybe sales, if you're the only salesperson in your team, that should be the last role that you should replace yourself with. You should be doing sales until the end. Now, what's the next bucket is I could train someone else to do this. What are the things that you can train someone else? Well, Definitely fulfillment. If you don't have that much money to hire a team, then start white labeling. You can white label a lot of your Google ads, your SEO, your video content, like editing. If you're doing videos and you're the one doing the video editing, that takes up a lot of time. You shouldn't be doing that. So make sure that you train someone how to do that, or just hire a part-time, hire a freelancer, whatever it takes. You train someone to do it. Once you start doing that, weekly audit, you can do it for a whole month. You're going to know where you're spending most of your time. Build one system. Don't build 5, don't build 10, just one system. Don't overwhelm yourself. Redesign one role around measurable outcomes. Okay, so just focus on the outcomes first. When you build that role, focus on the outcome. Make sure that you're blocking 2 hours of CEO thinking where you're just brain dumping and thinking about how you can grow the company, what new ideas you have, and just do a brain dump for 2 hours. Make sure you take off all the notifications from your phone and just focus on that brain dump. So those are the 5. Remember, number 1, right? Identify your biggest bottleneck. Number 2, do a weekly audit for a whole month. 3, build one system, not 5, just one. Number 4, redesign one role around measurable outcomes. And number 5, block 2 hours of CEO thinking, where you can do a brain dump and put all your ideas there where you want to take the company to grow. And guys, to close, revenue is not freedom. Revenue is when you have structure in place, when you have systems in place, when you have delegation in place, and when you have clarity in place. That's it. Guys, if you found this episode to be helpful, make sure that you share it with another agency owner who's stuck in the grind, and make sure to leave a review and subscribe. And most importantly, go build the agency that serves your life, not the one that consumes it. Go accomplish more. I'm excited for your growth, and I'm super excited that you're listening to this podcast, but take action.